head. You thought, publicly humiliated by saying wrong. I'm going to say, I'm sorry, he didn't do it. However, strategic thinking, you're right. If the entire history of technology is looked at, it has been on an exponential curve. Now, that has enormous implications. The interesting thing, however, is that if we plot the exponential curve on a logarithmic graph, which is designed to show rate of change, come from a maths background, but don't worry, just know that, if it's plotted on a logarithmic graph that shows the rate of change, in fact, it's a straight line. So the amount of change that we are experiencing right now, which seems absolutely exponential, in fact is utterly predictable and is doing exactly what it has done from the beginning of time. Because today, the power is with not having knowledge, but knowing how to maximize it, optimize it, transform it, synthesize it. That's where the power lies. And that is the basis for creative thinking and innovation. Knowing how to take this information and turn it into something really useful, being able to do problem solving with it. And that is exactly what we see. We look around the world and we see nations, organisations, people, schools who are innovating are the ones who are going to have long-term sustainability in the 21st century. Okay? Outsourcing, once upon a time, used to be associated with sweatshops offshore. We said, okay, offshore, outsourcing, and you think, Nike sweatshops. It used to be the low-level work that was done by very poorly paid people in sweatshops making clothes and shoes. Today, what's being outsourced is actually knowledge work, not necessarily that kind of sweatshop work. And there's a whole lot of really brilliant information in this book, which I'm sure many of you would actually use as your Bible, A Whole New Mind by Daniel Pink. And in it, he's very clear about documenting the way knowledge work is now being outsourced offshore. So that means that occupations like computer programming, information technology, radiology, financial analysis, basic lawyering, all things that we thought were the domain of the white-collar worker within our developed nation and who's been educated, that can now be outsourced. They can do it much cheaper in China, in Russia, in India. And they do a good job of it because they're very highly educated people. But they do it for a fraction of the cost. So we have to ask ourselves the question, now if all of that traditionally left-brain stuff can be outsourced offshore, what's left for us to do? What are we going to do? And that's very much what this book is about. It's a very influential book. So we need to be much more focused on the right brain, the whole brain kind of thinking. Where now it's that higher order sort of thinking that is going to be in much more demand here. So that's what we need to be educating our youngsters for, to be able to think creatively and do that big picture stuff that only we can do, or that is not done as well if it's outsourced. What we will tend to do when we're faced with lots to do, when we've got stuff on our plate, is that when we're faced with challenges, our natural tendency is to rely on our existing schema. So a schema is a template, it's like a mental template that gives you a shortcut way of going about solving problems. Right? And we need them. The whole world would be a big mess if we didn't have these fantastic mental schemas. Now, our brains are wonderful at finding the patterns in our life. So we need our schemas. But the downside is that when we're put upon and we're feeling stressed and we've got a lot going, we will tend to over-rely on the way we typically or traditionally in the past have solved problems and applied the same strategies to new problems. The problem with that is that old methodologies won't always solve new problems. Okay? So So there's a tendency to get a little bit trapped in these approaches that then lead to mental rut. So it's really helpful to have a tool, a cognitive tool that can kickstart your creative thinking. And that's what I want to share with you. See, as I'm touching the surface of the ball, all of the electrical activity and the impulses are being drawn to my finger. So it's acting like a conductor, if you like. That's what a good question does for us. It acts like a cognitive conductor. It will help to focus our mental energy. It will help us to call up information. It will help us to be much more productive. If we want better outcomes, we start by asking better questions. Better questions give us better outcomes, better results. Okay? So that's what this model is about, giving you a whole suite of powerful questions that are really useful on a whole lot of you. Strategize better, then the whole process that follows becomes more productive. So if we do the framing up right from the very beginning, we identify our outcomes, if we identify our goals, if we have an idea of what the process is going to look like, if we set it all up properly from the word go, and then we've got an effective system to monitor the process, good, high quality outcomes in a shorter space